So hello everybody, welcome to Six Pack of Questions. Today our guest is Cherie Phelps, and I will click on her so you can see her. So Cherie, this is how it works. I'm going to ask you 6 questions, and you're going to give me honest and real answers about them, and we'll have some dialogue, and hopefully somebody out there learns something from this. So, are you ready? Okay.
I'm ready.
So, do you want to start by telling us a little bit about yourself for the people that don't know you?
Sure. So my name is Cherie Phelps, and I own C. Phelps Photography in Omaha, Nebraska. And then I also just opened a second studio. Well, it's not quite open yet, but I'm going to be opening another studio in Madison, Wisconsin. That one is going to be called Lotus Photo. I have been in business in a home studio for over 12 years, although I've been photographing for several more than that. I specialize in high school seniors. I have 3 kids. My youngest is a senior this year and graduating. And I think that's it.
Perfect. Okay, so you ready for the questions?
Yes.
Okay, question number 1. Excuse me. Question number 1. Biggest business success?
My biggest business success. I would say that my biggest business success is navigating all of the administrative tasks for a business, including accounting, which makes me cry, literally.
It makes my wife cry too.
Yeah, taxes, which a lot of times I am late and pay penalties. Not because I can't pay them, but because, I forgot about first quarter taxes.
Right.
Scheduling, marketing, all of the things that a creative mind has a hard time doing. My attention span is of a 3-year-old, and the scariest thing for me in business is QuickBooks.
I hear you. What's your biggest business failure?
The biggest business failure that I have had is I have not spent time actively hiring, training, and maintaining a good, solid employee. I've tried having employees in the past, and maybe I'm a really poor manager. Maybe I like to be friends more than a manager. But I didn't hire an employee early, and so I have done everything alone. Which, it is what it was. It was what it was, and I had to, pay me first before I was going to spend money on someone else. And then along with that is when I tried to hire employees, I didn't have any procedure manuals. So it's like I was kind of trying to explain to them what was in my brain and how I did things, and they would smile and nod and make notes, and then it would go horribly awry. So, if there's one word of advice for business failure is to create procedure manuals, because even if you're not ready to hire an employee, once you do, if you have a procedure manual put together for all of the tasks that you do, you will be leap years ahead of the competition. And I actually used a new one. I don't know if have you heard of Clarify, Matt?
No.
So I use Clarify. You can go to the App Store, and I think it's like $40 or something like that. I don't know what it is, but I bought it, and it actually, you can do like screen capture, and it creates your procedure manual as you do tasks, which for me is fantastic. So I will, like, if I'm paying taxes, I create a procedure manual where I say paying taxes, and then I say step 1, go to www whatever, and then I can like create a screenshot, and it bumps it right in there, so people can see visually. And they can see in task-oriented, like line by line. So I started doing that as I started creating tasks and doing tasks. I started creating.
That's awesome. Yeah, because we struggle with this. We struggle with the same thing. Like we have employees, but like for example, like Alice and I were talking. Like Nicole didn't have a lot to do this week, and so like she's in a sense kind of sitting around, which is fine because we have busy weeks and slow weeks. But it'd be nice if we had a procedure manual, because then we could always reference it for what we could be doing, like as reminders, and then also like if we're not around, then she can just reference it.
Right.
So in hindsight, do you think you do you regret not hiring employees, or are you okay with that? You just wish that you would have put more time into it, or?
It's kind of a double-edged sword for me. I like to work at all hours of the day. I don't have a 9 to 5 schedule. For my clients, I do, because obviously you have to have business hours for your clients. But for me personally, I work at all times, and I work out of my home. And so to hire somebody to be here isn't just can they, do QuickBooks, can they do my administrative tasks, but also do I trust them to be in my home while I'm shooting a senior just here. For me, it's a different kind of beast. So I do regret not having somebody here that could help me do all those things. But at the same time, like I said before, when I would hire someone, typically, we hire high schoolers or interns or college students. And there's just a different kind of work ethic that comes along with that. They don't see what's important in my business as much as I see what's important. So I guess I don't know really how to answer that. Honestly, Matt, because yes, in a perfect world, I would have at least one solid office manager who knew everything that was going on, and I could check in and say, what are my tasks for today? And they would give me a printout and say, you have a session at 1, and you have to make sure that you meet with this client, or don't forget about that album that you specifically told your client you would do. And then I would just have my tasks, and they would run everything else. But I can't find that person.
Right.
So I just default to doing it.
Yeah, which I don't think is a bad thing either. But yeah, I agree. Like, it's hard because in an ideal situation, you'd have all kinds of staff to do everything for you, and you would just make money. In a real situation, like, you got to find the right people that actually can help you grow that long term. So. And
I feel a little bit. It's hard because in the past, I've tried to do the right thing, and so I hired somebody who was going to be my bookkeeper, and I made sure that they knew QuickBooks. I was like, QuickBooks, have you done accounting? And they're like, yeah, totally done all those things. And so, but then what I was finding is that when I would go through because I don't want to micromanage. I was micromanaged before in the military, and I don't want to be micromanaged. I don't want to micromanage either. And so when I would go back and just, pay my taxes or whatever, I would find that there was all of these errors, like months of reconciliations that I had to unreconcile. Yeah. And I had thought that I trained them properly. They said they knew QuickBooks, and the mistakes that they were making were simple errors and so I paid this person to do all this bookkeeping, and I had to go back and unreconcile and then spend all the time to do it. So I'm like, you know what, forget it. I'll just do it myself the first time.
Yeah, I hear you.
So I kind of made it. Or I'd come downstairs and the kid who's retouching is, searching for YouTube videos to listen to the next song while he's retouching. I'm like, it's wasting time. I shouldn't have to be here to manage you.
Right. No, I hear you. Because I think it comes down to having the right people in place. And it's just really, really hard to find the right people. Okay, question 3. Advice to a new photographer.
Hire people? No, I'm just kidding. We'll get past that one. Advice to a new photographer. Find a mentor. And not somebody in the photography industry. People are like, oh, I need to find a mentor who's a photographer who's doing better than me. No, because usually, you don't really pay a mentor, really. Because if you are trying to get business information, then that is a paid position. I don't want to mix those up. Find somebody who is successful in their business, and that you can glean information from that is going to help in your business. And you can find those people, perhaps they're a prior client. Maybe you do headshots, and you have photographed somebody who has a very successful counseling business or something like that. Another small business person who's very successful. And then I would contact them and say, hey, I'd love to get coffee with you and see if you are interested in being a mentor. And they may say no, and they may say yes. But that way you can look at things from a different perspective. Just because in the photography business we do things one way doesn't mean there's not another way to do it. And you might be surprised about the things that you learn and concepts that you're like, that you didn't get from other fellow photographers. So find a mentor, somebody
Right.
that you can look up to and learn from.
And I'll second that. Like we had a lot of mentors when we were first in business, which was really good. And I've kind of tweaked it a little bit now, and I think it kind of ebb and flows. But what I'm doing right now, for example, is I meet with groups of people that have like common interests with me. For example, so like the first Wednesday of every month, I meet with a social media group, and we just talk about social media. And they're kind of mentors, not in like the business sense a little bit like you're talking about, but they help me like navigate things. And so, for example, like what I watch them, the way they're using Snapchat or Instagram is completely different than the way our industry is. But there's so many good tips there too that they can kind of mentor you on what their industry is doing. And then I think it, like you says, it goes back to even like them mentoring on business practices and all kinds of stuff, like you were saying with other people as well.
Right. And, a lot of people say, get involved with a networking group. And I don't mean what you're talking about. I mean, like where you get together for an hour over lunch. And I've done a couple of those, and the first one didn't work for me at all. The second one was really cool, but every week you stood up and you said, "Hi, my name is Cherie Phelps. I own C. Phelps Photography in Gretna, Nebraska. I specialize in high school seniors. If you know anyone who's looking for business headshots, that's what I'm doing this week." And so that was more than networking. So I really didn't, for the group itself, get any mentorship. But it doesn't mean that in that group there wasn't somebody that maybe I connected with that I couldn't talk to. But I like what you're talking about. It's a very low entry to get together with other social media people, because if you feel like, for instance, your social media people, because if you feel like I just don't know anything, well, there's 3 other people there that can add to the group, as opposed to you feeling like I don't know anything.
Yeah.
And then as you're learning, you can do that, or in different aspects of business, marketing maybe, or promotion, or I don't know, hiring somebody for your business,
right.
whatever.
Right, and I think in a sense we're kind of saying the same thing. Like you have to use other people as resources for yourself, because you really can't do it alone, and you can't come up with everything in your own head. Like a lot of
not photographers. I mean, if it happens to be that there's a photographer in your social media group, fine. But there's a very fine line between saying, if I were to come to you and say, "Hey, Matt, I love what you're doing in the photography industry. Will you be my mentor?" And you're like, "Yeah, I love that." I'm like, "Okay, share with me your price list." No,
Right.
That's not mentoring.
I know.
That's,
yeah.
I pay you for that. Mentoring is outside thing. And then also with that is accountability. It's important, especially for someone like me who my timelines are out the wall, to have somebody who can hold me accountable personally and professionally for the goals that I set for myself and that I come up with together with maybe that mentor.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, next question. Advice for like an established photographer or somebody that's been in the industry for a really long time.
That one, I would say, never think that you know it all. I hear over and over from established photographers who have been here forever. Back when we were still shooting film,
Right.
or before everyone seemed to be a photographer, and it's almost like they have this big chip on their shoulder. And I'm guilty of that. I started I was in photography in the military when I was 18, and now I'm 42. I'm not afraid to say it. So a lot has changed. You know what? But that's the way it is. And in the 24 years maybe that I've been in the industry, it's only going to change exponentially in the next 24 years. And so to sit here and think that, I've done it all, I know it all, I know how to market to these people, especially senior photography, but really any photography, that I know what I'm doing, is going to land you with a for sale sign out front, because times are changing. And there are so many successful photographers who have just entered the race in the last 5 years, maybe even less. Right. For some of them. And they come in with new thoughts and new processes and new ideas, and they're technically savvy and they understand social media. I was talking to one photographer who I've known for years, and he's like, "I'm not doing that social media thing. I've never done it. I've always been successful. I'm never going to do it." And I was like, okay, that is a wrong attitude to take.
Right.
If you don't know how to do it, find somebody who can, because that's the way the industry is going. And so not to just think they know everything. And the scary thing that goes along with that is they might have to find a paid business mentor that's younger than them, that has only been in the industry, the race for the last 5 years, who is successful, and swallow their pride and say, hey, I see that you know what you're doing. And you've obviously, created a very successful business, and I would love to pay you to pick your brain and find out what you're doing and how I can integrate that into my old studio.
Right.
And that's some of them, Joey Jones, I freaking love Joey Jones. And he'll always say, we call him Grandpa Joey, because he's been in the industry forever. But if there's one thing that I love about Joey is he's constantly, finding the new thing. And he's not one to say, back in the day, we sent out 45,000 mailers to all these kids, and that's what I'm going to do now because that's what's always worked. He's looking at different ways to do it. And he hires these young interns that understand and are relevant to his senior business. And he's what's doing right in the old photographer arena. Right,
exactly. No, I totally agree with that. Okay. I don't really have much to add about that one because that was amazing.
Cool.
Okay, so next question. Why are you successful?
Because I got a cute face. Oh, you mean really?
Yeah, really.
I would say I'm successful because I'm always learning and growing, because I'm always moving, because I'm always looking for what's happening, because I am looking at images that compel me to be better and learning how to create that lighting. So yeah, I'm always trying to learn from old and new. And when I don't know, I'll ask. I think that's what has helped me to be successful. If I don't just sit here and think that I know everything, I just asked you today. I sent you a question. I'm like, hey Matt, do you have this? Because that's what's on my mind now. And rather than sit here and muddle it through on my own, I can learn from other people.
Right.
I'm always learning.
And so let me look what your question that you sent me today was. You sent me earlier this morning. You said, hold on, I can find it. It's in my text message. Sorry, we've sent a lot of text messages already today.
It was in the others. It was in the other group that I sent you.
Okay. Yep. Can I find it? Sorry.
Let me tell you what.
No, so she said, you said, do you have a social media schedule that you follow? And that's a really good question, because I think at times we have and at times we haven't. And right now we kind of more have like a framework for each platform, and we know what we want to post on each platform and how often we want to post. And sometimes we have extra content, and sometimes we have to come up with content for it. But we have more of a framework now than really like a schedule. So, but I think
and that's because I don't know. It's something that I have a question about, and I know that you are one of your passions and one of the things that you are really an expert on is social media and utilizing it. And so I thought, who better to ask than you? And you could have said, well, you said what you just did, but you could have said, absolutely, I do.
Yeah.
And whether or not we move forward in that, or I say, hey, can I buy it from you, or can I, pick your brain? Can I whatever? I ask questions, and then if I don't know, if I have them, if I don't know answers.
Right. And just as a point, I think you and I can flush out like kind of what my framework is and stuff, and I'll make a blog post about it as well. But I think it's a really good question, because some people do have schedules, but I'm not a schedule guy. Okay, last question. Are you ready?
Yes.
Now I have to switch text messages real quick to find your other question. Okay, got it. What makes a good photographer?
Get outside your comfort zone, whatever that is for you. If you are someone who has a hard time interacting with clients, then challenge yourself to be more personable and relational. If you are someone who doesn't like QuickBooks, challenge yourself to take a class. If you're not comfortable with studio lighting, then find someone or take classes on learning more about studio lighting, but get outside your comfort zone. When we stay happy in our little rowboat that goes gently down the stream, there's no growth. It's only when we're in those rapids, it's only when our heart starts pounding and we feel like we could tip over and drown, that sometimes the growth happens. And so that is a scary place to be, but it is also a very lucrative, I don't mean financially, a lucrative and exciting place to be in business. You should never be going down the easy stream of life or business. Always get outside the comfort zone. Always try the rapids.
Awesome. Okay, that was perfect. So those were your 6 questions. You did amazing. Thank you. So,
Yay!
all right.